we would like to welcome you to our CC1 online bootcamp. This is a 2-hour concentrated session to give you some good background on the CC1 product, some of our Cisco goings on before I turn it over to Amit, and Dean mentioned one of the things I'm going to mention. This is an interactive session. Amit has done 2 of these for me with other theaters, and these tend to be interactive. We'll talk about how we can get that done during the call. We'll pause, obviously, but if not, we'll find ways to answer your questions. So we really look forward to sharing this with the team. I'd like to thank Dean for being really aggressive in making sure we keep you guys front and center as part of this. I think that the commercial and GS segments are very critical pieces of the puzzle here as we move to market. It's a highly competitive market, which I'll mention in a minute. So thanks all for joining, and let's just jump in. So basically, I'll do 4 things before we start, or 1 thing, and then we'll jump to 2, 3, and 4. I'll talk about the format and then introduce Amit, and then I'm going to give you a few bullet points on the Cisco side of CC1 as it is coming into the equation here, as Amit will give you sort of the BroadSoft side and the product side of it that's being absorbed into Cisco. We'll spend some time on the CC1 architecture and value proposition, why it wins, where it wins, and how. And then we're going to go through a live demonstration with Q&A. Of course, Q&A anytime, so feel free to ask questions either in the Webex chat room or IM or some way, or just say I need to ask a question. We're happy to entertain that. So the first thing I'd like to do is have you meet Amit Verma. So Amit, why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself to the team so everybody knows your background.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Amit Verma at BroadSoft. I'm the Senior Director of Product Management. I joined Transera back in 2012 from Oracle, and I was, over the years, responsible for the product management group. And 2 years ago, we got acquired by BroadSoft, and part of our focus turned into integrating the solution with the BroadSoft portfolio of products such as UC, and we'll show that in the demo today in terms of what we have done on that front. And at Oracle, I worked at a number of product lines, e-business suite, PeopleSoft, CRM on demand, and then the Fusion, which is the RightNow acquisition. And prior to Oracle, I actually worked at eGain Communications, and eGain is actually what is used for providing the multimedia functionality for the on-prem solution. So look forward to working with everybody, and thanks for taking the time to attend this webinar.
Yes, and for any of you that are going to Enterprise Connect next week, Amit will be at the BroadSoft booth, which is going to be extremely close to ours at next week. Amit, you're scheduled to be there, I think, for almost the whole week. Yeah, so stop by and see him. He'll have a live demo of the product, and I'm sure it will be standing room only.
So in terms of the format, I have a set of slides, and those are just meant to provide an overview of the solution, and then I'll follow it up with a demo. And in the slides and even in the demo, we'll keep it interactive, so as you have questions, we'll pause after 1 or 2 slides, and we can take the questions on. So if we just look at CC1, so the legacy of the solution is it was formed by a company called Transera back in 2004, and CC1 was envisioned from the ground up as a cloud-only solution. That meant that when the solution was being conceived, things such as service delivery in terms of making sure that the application architecture is designed in such a way so that the service is not impacted, there's redundancy at every level. There is also the concept of multi-tenancy inbuilt and inherent in the solution. So that's one of the competitive advantages that we have in CC1 compared to the competitors, because over the years what's happened is the contact center vendors, they had a contact center solution but was designed for an on-premise solution. And as the popularity of the cloud grew, they kind of put that same software and hosted it, and then said we have a cloud offering. But then they then run into challenges with the solution not being multi-tenant, with the service delivery not being architected in such a way. And those are our core advantages as part of CC1. So when we started the company, there weren't very many avenues that are available today for hosting the solution. So now you have the Amazon Web Services platform that's available. You also have GCP and some of the other vendors. So back then, all these were not available, and the path we took was we essentially had our own hosted service. So on that front, we took up data center space in New York and LA, and we just wanted to have two geographies on basically two locations on either end of the country, so that if one location say got hit by a hurricane or a snowstorm like what happened last week, and there's a power outage or anything of that nature, we could send the traffic to the LA site as an example. And similarly, if say West Coast got hit by a earthquake as an example, we did have the New York site available. So that was from a legacy standpoint. And now that we have the tools available for hosting, and we don't need to go in and spend our time managing the infrastructure, the new upcoming release in 10.0 is going to be available as a service which is deployed on the AWS platform. So again, where the service is hosted, it does not matter to the customer. For the customer, it is just a service. We make sure the service is up and running, and they just consume and use the application, and they essentially pay as they go. That's part of the SaaS service. So the strength of the application, and I'll show this in the demo, is a full omni-channel contact center. It has very powerful analytics capabilities, and we'll talk about the analytics in the next few slides. We have a very deep integration into Salesforce as well. So with Salesforce, we not only have the integration at the agent level, but we also integrate at the supervisor level. And then lastly, as part of our portfolio integration into BroadSoft, so BroadSoft had a unified communications platform similar to Spark, and the contact center is integrated into UC, so that if an agent is working on an interaction and they don't know the answer, they can reach out on UC to the subject matter expert, get the answer from the agent desktop, and resolve the customer issue. So like I said, the product has been in existence for a long time. It's a mature product. We have lots of satisfied and referenceable customers, big brand names, Office Depot, Guppy Renter. And so even though the solution scales from 5 agents to we have customers with 6,000 agents using the solution, within the Cisco portfolio, we are targeting the 21 to 300 agent range for the sweet spot for positioning CC1. Anything below this range would probably be a Spark opportunity, and anything above this range in the cloud space would probably go into the HCS solution space. It is a modern cloud architecture. The analytics solution is built on the leveraging the big data stack. So we use Elasticsearch. And over the years, as companies have innovated the big data solutions such as Google and Facebook, we have leveraged some of those components and added that as part of our technology, especially in the analytics space, so that we are competitive and we are current in the solution that we offer as a modern solution. We also have RESTful APIs, so everything that's provisioned in the application is available through API calls. We have all the interaction records and agent activity records available through APIs. And our UIs, as you will see, are very modern looking. They are built using the React and Angular framework. So just a modern solution that's current on that front. And as you heard earlier, CC1 has been recognized as a great product. So within the Gartner Magic Quadrant, for the last 3 years, it's been consistently being placed on the far right on the visionary front. So our challenge is on the x-axis is the ability to execute. on that front, we have not been very successful, but from a product standpoint, we have been recognized as having all the bells and whistles among all the contact center solutions that are available. So now it's just a matter of, the Cisco brand name and the execution, which is what was lacking on the product so far. Any questions on this front before we go into the architecture? Okay.
Well, I do have a question. This is Joe Hughes. I do have a question. I'm sorry, I think my camera's closed. On the 21, you're saying do Spark, Care, and less, but a common strategy for us in the past for Contact Center Express is selling a solution to the IT department, and that might be less than 20, but it's usually when they have an Avaya contact center. The goal is to, to get the customer excited to move over. So if that's the case, I'd rather push Contact Center 1 or CC1. Is there any other limitation on less than 20 other than just how we want to position it?
The positioning right now, and there's a lot of questions about this, is basically based upon the ability to execute in the marketplace this time with the resources that can deploy these type of solutions. The product itself, its pedigree is larger than this. They have larger deployments, but right now the capability of deployment successfully is we have to do this right and get this right initially. There's a lot of people coming at us with 8,000 this and 10,000 that. We are nowhere near in the position to be able to deploy something like that in any way, shape, or form with the number of resources that came over. We will get there at some point someday, but we have to be very mindful that we have a successful hosted contact center HCS business. It's profitable and many partners use it. We have Express, which is still doing okay, right? So there's a hole in the market from 20 to 300, which is being eaten up by 5 nines, Ring Central, and InContact. And the CAGRs in this market are 28% year over year. So if you look at our positioning grid of what we have, there's a donut right where this is put in, Joe. So you can use Express absolutely as a Trojan horse. There's no doubt. Care.
No. I want to use CC1 as a Trojan horse in less than 20. That was my question. It sounds like it's definitely based on the cap, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I don't know if you want to do a 5-agent pilot and things like that because, right now there's customers in queue that have to be deployed that are still in motion from BroadSoft's what they brought to their funnel here also too, right? So you have to balance a bunch of things here. It's not just what the product's capable of; it's what we're capable of as an organization to deliver in this time frame.
Hey, just a follow on to that. So we recently acquired Viptela too. And they had a whole cloud offering and everything, and they were kind of giving us the same target, like, hey, if it's under 20 sites, it may not be worth it for us because at the time, and I think they still do, they spin everything up in AWS, and it actually costs us more money to run that in AWS, and we're not going to make as much money from the customer. Is that why this limitation exists, or what if I have a customer that has 10 agents? Are we going to end up losing money on the deal if we only have 10 agents on there?
If you want to sell 10 agents?
Yeah.
Again, I'm trying to think how to explain this. Probably not. I don't know the profit profile of the product. I don't think we should be going out and trying to sell 10 agent solutions or 10,000 agent solutions, right? It should be a little bit bigger than that and definitely well under that. This 20 to 300 was based on taking a look. Part of it is that's how Gartner defines the mid-market, by the way, which is what we're going after. And maybe at the end of the call, I can put up a positioning chart and show you where this hole is in the marketplace that exists. But I can tell you that 5 nines and those guys don't sell a lot of 5-agent deployments in Ring. And,
I think part of the other thing is we didn't want to step on the Spark Care, right? That's a sub 20 type offering. So I think that's also part of the challenge too. That's what I've heard so far. So.
Not necessarily. By the way, on the long term, you're going to see a Cisco Cloud Contact Center offer that will be based largely on what CC1 has and some of the best of Spark Care coming together. So you'll see Spark Care kind of trail off over time, and it'll be something that will have probably a digital solution, which is Care Now, and then a voice end of it. But that still remains to be seen. But this is the This is the platform for cloud contact center that we're going to build on top of.
And how about geographic reach? So I see data centers are in LA and New York. You know, obviously in Canada is probably no problem. South America, Europe, Asia, what does that look like?
We can get to that a little. Amit can talk about the architecture when he does that. Essentially, right now, the only place the release 10 of the software can be sold in the world is in the U.S., in the Americas. The basic architecture is a centralized software stack that the customer accesses through a connection, a SIP connection, dual connect kind of scenario, and the voice pops have to be upgraded to support release 10. So all the voice pops outside the U.S., the ones in, that support countries that release 9.9 could have been sold of, need to be upgraded. So there is some international reach. Before this release 10 release came out, it was available in 7 countries: UK, Germany, US, Canada, Japan, ANZ, and Australia. Those will probably be the first ones that come back online when those pops are upgraded.
Okay.
And just to add on that question and what Zach mentioned in terms of if we talk about 10 agents, it's not the cost of the 10 agents which might be the issue. It is the implementation and the work involved in turning up the customer and prioritizing that over another customer, I think is what the initial concern is. So just wanted to throw that out in terms of, it's not the AWS cost which is a factor, because that's already, we're already paying for a lot more capacity given that we are running the service. So moving forward, let me quickly talk about the architecture of CC1. So as part of CC1, what we have done is we have separated the application layer from the media layer. So what I mean by that is when a call comes in, the call lands on the voice pop, and the voice pop essentially extends a connection or creates another leg to the agent. And the customer leg is then connected with the agent leg as a conference object on the voice pop. And the application center is basically involved in figuring out who is the right agent that should be assigned to this particular call. So since we have segregated the media, the voice remains isolated to the voice pop. So when we go into a new geography, say if we want to turn up Japan as an example, and the customers are in Japan and the agents are in Japan, all we need to do is set up a new voice pop in Japan, and that way the application center could be centralized. It could be in the US or anywhere else in the world, and the signaling can take place between the voice pop and the data center for instructing the voice pop in terms of which agent should be sent that particular call. So that's our strength in terms of other applications. Say if I know of a customer who was considering a solution that was hosted in the UK, and actually the customer was New Voice, the vendor was New Voice Media, and their solution in Australia was when a call comes in, the call goes backhaul to the UK, and then it is sent back to an agent in Australia. So there is all this going back and forth for the voice call, which adds to the latency and the quality of service, which impacts service. So in our solution, because of our this particular architecture, we can just add additional voice pops to handle additional load and also to increase our presence in the different geographies. So just to talk about what is a voice pop. So voice pop is it consists of session border controllers and media servers. So SPCs are off-the-shelf products, and media servers, they are typically run on VMs or on the Intel hardware. And if we just look at what happens in the application center. So the application center consists of 3 different components. When the calls come in, those are handled by the call control gateway. So the call control gateway has a full track of all the incoming calls, and then when the agents log in, there is another component called the Agent Control Gateway, and the ACG essentially keeps track of all the agents who are logged in, including their state. So when the calls come in, the CCG essentially appeals to the application manager, the Transera application manager called the TAM. The TAM looks at the ACG information and sees which agents are available, and then using the information that's configured, it finds the right agent for a particular call. So that's essentially what happens at the data center level. So now let's look at how the application center and the voice box work together. So when the call comes in, the call hits the SPC. The SPC sends a signal to the CCG saying, I've received a call. And the call then is sent to the media server, and at the media server, the CCG can play or send a signal in terms of what IVR message and music and hold should be played to that particular call. And at the same time, CCG makes an appeal to the TAM and figures out which is the right agent to be assigned to this call. Once the agent is available, the CCG signals the other SPC to initiate a call to the agent for that who's been assigned to that call. So another leg is created, and at the media server level, a conference object is created, and the customer leg is conferenced with the agent leg. And what happens is at the media server level too, all the recording takes place as well. So the media server records the call as part of our architecture. So the recording is inbuilt into the application. So now, because we create the conference object at the media server level, right? So now this allows us for adding and providing functionality for both the supervisor and the agent. So for supervisors, say the supervisor says I want to monitor a call. All we do is we have the conference object already created. We just create another leg to that particular to that supervisor and add to that conference object. So now the supervisor has barge-in capabilities, silent monitor capabilities, whisper poaching capabilities. And similarly on the agent front, if the agent says, well, I want to transfer this call to another queue, or if I want to add another agent, we just create another leg and connect those two parties into the, connect the third agent into the conference object. So again, because it's a very straightforward solution, we are able to do all of these things. And in terms of our architecture, so from a legacy standpoint, like I said, we had data centers in LA and JFK, and these were redundant. And as part of the initial setup, we had voice pops as well, both in LA and JFK. So those are the two round circles in orange next to the data center. So as our business grew, we added additional voice pops. So the existing data centers were able to work with all the voice pops that were added to the solution. So essentially, we don't have the restriction for saying that this data center can only work with these voice pops. The data centers can work with as many voice pops as you can configure and set up. So in this particular case, we started off with LA and JFK voice pops, but then we added a voice pop for our partner EXO. A customer signed up who wanted their own voice pop called SunGuard, so we set that up. We went to market in Europe, and we added voice pops in London and Amsterdam, providing that service in that geography. So the European region was served through those two voice pops, and then the data center was in the US doing the signaling, so that worked without any problems. Similarly, we went to Japan, and on the Japanese front, we had one voice pop dedicated for our customer, Dutty Ranker, and then another voice pop for our partner, ACSK. So as you can see, one set of data centers can handle many voice pops, and that allows us to go into additional geographies with these. So let's talk about the solutions and the bells and whistles available in the product. Before we do that, let's quickly talk about where does CC1 fit in the Cisco portfolio. So Of course, for the smallest contact center, there's Spark Care, and that basically works well if there's a digital solution required. Now, in the mid-market, we have 3 editions that are served through CC1. At the lower end, if the customer is looking for a voice-only solution, there is a CC1 Business Edition standard. So that includes the voice functionality. There is also the ACD analytics, and I'll talk about the analytics solution that's available. And then on top of this, you can have the workforce optimization. You can have speech-enabled IVR as add-on components. Beyond that, if the customer, in addition to voice, is looking for an omni-channel solution, then that's when you can position the CC1 Business Edition Premium. And that includes all the channels that we have available. It also includes 360-degree analytics, so you are able to add additional data sources into your analyzer for it to give the contact center a full visibility in terms of how the operations are performing. And then for customers who are using Salesforce, we have a Salesforce edition, which basically integrates not only at the agent level, but also at the supervisor level. And then beyond the 300 mark range, the HCS is still the solution to be positioned, and this basically provides a private cloud solution. So that's the portfolio, the contact center portfolio for Cisco. Any questions on this front?
Look for that over time, this chart to be modified, obviously, as we have some capabilities of care folded into CC1, and we begin to scale up. So,
yeah. Thank you, then. All right, so let's talk about the...
real quick, I may have missed that on the last slide. Is it logged in, concurrent logged in agents or named agents? How is the agent count?
Good question. So in CC1, our model has been usage-based. So we don't care about how many agents are provisioned. It's basically how many agents logged in. So our model is at the end of the month, we look at how many named agents logged into the system, and we have a SKU for that, which basically is charged based on the usage for the previous month.
Thank you. Is that concurrent logins then, or just over the 1 month period, however many people total logged in?
It's the named agent. So we look at how many agents logged in, and it's not the concurrent count. It is named agents. So how many different users logged in. So that's the model we have taken since the BroadSoft acquisition 2 years ago. But prior to that, our pricing has been different in terms of in some situations we did do concurrent, and in some cases we did do per call. But those are grandfathered in. But going forward, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, we are going to go with the named agent model only.
So, Amit, just a question on that, Zach. The current model, is that month? So you're invoicing monthly in arrears based on the number of named agents that have logged in over the last month? Is it really a true usage model?
it is. Well, and it is because think of the 35 partners they have right now, Paul, are service providers, right, who are selling minutes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, they get a bill, and it's almost like an Amazon where you just flex up and down, or I wouldn't even call it that, you just get a usage bill. The partners that we're bringing on board are not going to become service providers. They're not. The Converge ones, the ones that have all raised their hands, the Presidios, the like, so they're going to be having a different go-to-market model in this.
Yeah.
Zach, does that mean we're going to have multiple go-to-market models? Is that what I heard? Because we're going to keep that service provider, or?
You know what? I don't know. That's interesting. I think that the people that have the contracts, the 35 tier 2s, are going to be still in business, but they're very small and they're really transaction partners, right? And as we ramp up the Cisco end of it, our ATPs, our current ATPs, we're probably going to, focus more or less mostly on them. We have hundreds of these. We went into the Partner Advisory Council, these 12 companies, and we talked to them about this, and they're all seeing the 5.9 ring growth in that, and they know where cloud's going. I think 11 of them raised their hand on the call and said they want to go to the trial program. So there's a tremendous interest. And by the way, some of these large ones were historic Avaya partners, like Converge One, right, that have half Cisco practices now. So it's a very good thing to see this level of interest.
Okay. So if we just talk about the functionality that's available in the application. So CC1, like I mentioned, is a full omni-channel interaction center, and we can handle the interactions across the different channels. At this point, we support voice, email, and chat. But as part of the roadmap, we have SMS, social interactions that we will be able to pull in. And these interactions are assigned to the agent. And the agent, using the single agent desktop, is able to handle all the interactions across the different channels. So we don't have the requirement for the agent going into a separate application or a separate agent desktop for email and chat and a separate agent desktop for voice. Everything is available on a single agent desktop. And then the other advantage of this is that the agent, when they are working on an interaction, they're able to see full omni-channel interaction history for the customer across the different channels. So when they're talking to a customer, they are able to go in and see the customer's past email and chat interactions as well. And this information can also be used for analytics as well. So with that, the solution can essentially, you can define rules so that, say, if a customer has previously sent 2 emails and 3 chats, and now is making a phone call, maybe they are more likely to make a purchase regarding the product that they're calling about. So maybe they should be connected to a product specialist as opposed to them being sent to a generic queue. So that's the other advantage of a full omni-channel interaction history, where your routing is now enhanced to provide more cross-channel information to your advantage. So let's talk about our Salesforce edition as well. So we had a Salesforce integration. This goes back about 4 years, and we integrated at the agent level. And what that meant was when the agent logged in, they went into, say, Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, and the Salesforce had provided like a little box to us for the phone icon where our agent desktop was embedded. So the agent, for the most part, was using the Salesforce agent desktop, and a little bit of real estate was available to CC1, like any other CTI vendor. And with this integration, what we did was when an incoming call came in, we essentially looked at what the parameters of the call were. We sent that information to Salesforce for them to do a screen pop, and the agent knew who's calling, why they're calling, and all the past interactions of that particular customer. And then when the call ended, we sent, we created an interaction record within Salesforce, so the fact that the call came in and what the disposition was logged into Salesforce. And then lastly, we did click to dial functionality as well that we had added. So now within Salesforce, all the phone numbers were hyperlinked, so the agent could click and an outbound call would be made. And that was, we didn't have a differentiated solution on that front. And even with this solution, what we realized was we have the integration for the agent, but then the supervisor, they have to go into Salesforce and manage their Salesforce users. And then when the supervisor wanted to manage their voice infrastructure, which is essentially defining how your call should be routed, they had to go to another platform, the CC1 platform, log in and do everything on another application. So there was no real integration for the supervisor, and for the supervisor, it was 2 disjoint applications talking to each other. So what we did as part of our Salesforce integration is we have embedded all of our supervisory and administrative functionality within Salesforce. And I'll show this in the demo, where now the Salesforce user does not have to leave Salesforce at all, even at the supervisor level. Supervisors and administrators just log into Salesforce, they configure everything in Salesforce, and voice just appears to be added as an additional channel natively by Salesforce. So it's a very powerful solution, and if you have customers who are using Salesforce, and if you demo our solution, it is beyond anything that they have seen from any other vendor. So again, a big competitive advantage for CC1 in terms of the integration into Salesforce. So before jumping into the demo, the last thing I want to talk about is our analytics solution. So this is going back about 6 years. We had a customer called Gati Ranker who was using our solution extensively. And just to provide background on Gati Ranker, so for those who are not aware, so Gati Ranker is a direct marketing company, and they have products which are endorsed by celebrities, and they don't have any brick and mortar stores. Their model is they just buy ad on TV or slots on TV, and they play these infomercials which are endorsed by celebrities. So for example, you might hear Justin Bieber coming in and saying, you know, there's this great cream, if you apply it, all your acne problems will go away. It's called Proactive. Or, you know, Cindy Crawford will come on and say, you know, this melon from the south of France, have you made this cream, and it'll make you look gorgeous like me. And that's called Meaningful Beauty. Or, you know, now they have increased their portfolio and they have Crêpe Arrays and all these other products. So the bottom line is this particular customer, you know, the business model was calls were coming in from customers, and it was very important for those calls to get converted to sales. And all those calls were coming into the CC1 platform. So their request to us was, you know, you're doing a great job with your routing, can you improve it? And as we were analyzing the problem in terms of what's going on, we realized that it was not a routing problem, but it was actually a data problem. So just to explain more on that front and that problem is, let's use an example of a phone call to, say, United Airlines, right? So when you make the phone call, your call is front-ended by an IVR, and the IVR will try and collect some information from you. It will try and solve your problem, but most of the time it's not able to solve your problem. But it's collected some information, and then which it passes on to the ACD solution, which might be CC1 or may not be CC1. The ACD solution then finds the right agent for that particular call, and then sends the call to the agent. The agent might use a CRM system to track and resolve the customer issue. And then there might be a workforce management application in place. There might be a quality management application in place for the supervisors to review those interactions. And then there might even be a survey application. I know United uses Qualtrics, which can capture the customer's perception of that interaction. So as you can see, one simple phone call could be touched by about half a dozen systems in a particular organization. The other thing that we noticed as we were researching this problem is each of these systems, they have great reports. So for example, the IVR will have a great report. It will tell you, yeah, 30% of the people are pressing 3 in the IVR menu versus 4. And the survey application will have a great report. It will say 80% of the people are very happy with their interactions, and 20% of the people are not. But the survey application doesn't know that all those 20% of the people who are unhappy all press, say, a same menu item in the IVR, and that always results in an unhappy interaction. And the reason the survey application doesn't know is because, you know, there is no linking of information. So what we do as part of our analytics solution is we pull the customer interaction record from all the different systems that touch the customer interaction, and we pull it into our repository, and we stitch it together to create a unified interaction record. And in this case, it will be the IVR record followed by the ACD information followed by the CRM, but that's just one example. The interaction could originate from the web, in which case the information of that interaction would be the fields captured by the website, followed by maybe a chat and information from a chat application, and so on and so forth. So our repository, like I mentioned, is built on a big data stack. So it's a flexible schema model. So we don't restrict customers saying you have to use these specific fields. We just add the fields on the fly depending on the customer's implementation and what their specific environment is. And then once we have this information, we then have an application called the Analyzer. And in the demo, I'll show you the Analyzer where a user can go in and slice and dice the data to whatever requirements they have. So it can be viewed as a reporting platform, but it's so much more than a reporting platform because you have the ability to go in and do descriptive and exploratory analytics. And I'll show you two examples where the user can go in and gain insights from the underlying data. Beyond that, we have two other steps, and these are very PS heavy. So professional services is engaged. And as part of these two solutions, we go into a customer and say, what KPI is important to you? And so for some customers, it might be, say, the revenue. For some other customers, it might be first call resolution. And we look at and analyze their past 3 months of data, and we figure out what attributes in the past in their data has resulted in uplift or decrease of that particular KPI that is important to them. Now that we know that which factors result in that increase or decrease, we can then create models in terms of how the call should be handled. So for example, in one particular case, we saw that there was a different level of performance of the different agents, and we put those agents into different buckets of performance. And when the call came in, we first looked at the higher performing agent cluster and sent the call to those set of agents and rather than the low performing agents. So these improvements, whether it's sending it to a specific agent or say launching a specific script on the CRM application, can be sent to that specific application as well. So before we jump into the application, the last thing is talking about our 10.0 release. So in the 10.0 release, we have modernized all of our UIs across the board. We have added outbound campaign manager functionality. So now the user can go in, they can create campaigns. As part of the campaign, they can upload lists. Within the specific campaigns, those can be earmarked as preview or progressive mode. So in preview, it is a pull where the agent clicks on a button and requests for a record from the campaign manager, and then has the opportunity to preview that record before the call is made to the customer. While in progressive, the agent stays in available state, and as the incoming calls are depleted, the system then makes a request to the campaign manager to place an outbound call. We have also added and enhanced our workforce optimization integration, which is to Calabrio. So right on the customer dashboard, the user is able to single sign on into the Calabrio application, which is an integration at the cloud level. So it's a cloud-to-cloud integration, and the Calabrio application is branded BroadSoft, and essentially all of the provisioning information is also sent automatically to Calabrio, so there is no rework and duplication of effort on that front. We've also added our integration into BroadSoft's unified communication platform. So when the agent is working on an interaction, they are able to see the presence of the users on the UC front, and while they're working on an interaction, they can even chat with them and get the information that they're looking for. This release is PCI Level 1 certified. Now, this is an important factor. The 9.9 release is not PCI. We had attested to it being certified, so that's Level 2. But in this case, we have undergone an audit, and we have made sure that all the vulnerabilities have been addressed, and we have received the certification. We've also added 2 integrations to CRM vendors, one to Zendesk and Microsoft Dynamics, and these are actually at the agent level. This is not supervisor level integrations. And we also added net new functionality for service providers for them to go in, and there's a portal available where service providers can add additional resellers, and they also have that ability to create tenants underneath them. At this point, there is manual work that's required when the tenant is created, but there is work underway to automate those steps too. And then lastly, we have the speech-enabled IVR too, which is where as part of the solution, so within CC1 we have an IVR that supports TTMF input. So for example, you can ask the caller why you're calling, and you can play a wave file, press 1 for sales, 2 for service, and you can collect the response in 1 or 2. But in some cases, the customer might be looking for speech recognition, right? So you want the customer saying, I have a sales question. And if you need that level of functionality, that's when we partner with Inference, and we provide the speech recognition capability using them. So with that said, let me jump into the demo. Before I do that, were there any questions? Okay, so this is the login page for the CC1 application, and there's only one login page irrespective of whether you are an agent or supervisor or service provider. There's just one login. You put in your username, password, and depending on what your credentials are, you'll be taken to the right page. So in this case, I'm logging in as a supervisor who is also an agent. So as a result, I'm seeing this agent desktop link that's appearing. So before I go into the supervisory piece, let me show you the agent interface. So in this case, when the agent logs in, they are taken to this page where they can enter the information in terms of which phone number they want to log in for this session. So in this case, I just logged in a few minutes ago, and the system recognized the phone number at which I was available. So actually, let me just quickly log out. Try that again. Okay, so when I log in as an agent, the agent can put in the phone number at which they are reachable for this session. So we support the true work from anywhere model. So in this case, the agent say is working from home. They can start with putting in their home number. Say they come to the office, they can put in their office number, and if they're working remote, they put in their cell phone number. So it's a true work from anywhere model. We don't have the agent sitting at a particular location using a specific device. They can put in any phone number at which they're available. So the agent then can select the team into which they want to log in. So in this case, the agent has just been assigned one team, but within CC1, the agent can belong to multiple teams, but at the time of login, they have to choose which team they want to log in into for that session. So once they do that, they hit save. And now the agent is logged in and can handle the interactions across the different channels. So in this case, this agent can handle one voice interaction, one email interaction from these queues, and one chat interaction from these queues. So this is what the capacity that has been assigned to this agent for this based on the multimedia profile. But the supervisor can create an additional multimedia profile which can say that these agents can handle, say, 5 simultaneous emails and 3 simultaneous chats at any given time. And then the system will use this capacity and start assigning interactions to these agents based on that capacity. So that's all configurable by the supervisor. On the left, all the past interactions for this agent that they've handled are displayed. The agent can make an outbound call, so there's a number pad that's available. They can even select the ANI that appears when the outbound call is made. This is the preview dialing capability. So when the agent presses this button, a request is made to the campaign manager and an outbound record is presented to the agent in preview mode. We also have the ability for the agent to create templates, which they are typing over and over again in their interactions. They have that ability to create those templates, which are then can be associated with an interaction, and I'll show that when an interaction is assigned to this agent. We also have the ability for the agent to save emails, and they can work on those saved emails right here. They can even compose an outbound email using the compose email button here. And we provide visibility to the agent in terms of their personal stats, in terms of how productive they've been and how many calls they've handled. So we show the information from both the inbound call perspective, outbound call perspective. We also show information to the agent in terms of how many other agents are logged in for the different teams. And we also give visibility in terms of the number of interactions waiting in the queue for agents to be handled. And this is important because now we don't want the agent to say, take a long lunch when there are a lot of calls in the queue. So this basically helps on that front. And on the threshold alert, so we have functionality in our system called threshold rules. And as part of that functionality, the supervisor can create rules so that they are notified based on exception. So an example of that rule is, say, the supervisor says, well, I would like to be notified if the number of, say, calls in the IVR exceed a certain number. So using that particular rule, if there's a call storm, the supervisor would be notified. And another example of this particular threshold rule is, say, if the number of available agents drop below a certain number, then the supervisor would be notified as well. Now, on the agent front, if the agent was responsible for any of these rules to be triggered, we display that information to that agent too. And you can control as much of this information and suppress as much of that or display as much of this information to the agent based on your requirements, and it's basically a profiling, a configuration setting. There's also help, online help available for the agent. And the last link is for signing into UC. So the agent essentially can click on sign into UC, and we support the integration into BroadWorks. So in this case, the user just puts in the BroadWorks URL, puts in their login and password, and hits sign in. So this is a server-side integration. There is no footprint on the agent desktop. The agent doesn't need to install anything on their local desktop for this functionality to work. It's all web-based, and now when the user logs in, they are able to see the presence information of the users that their supervisor has granted access to them. But the agent at this point cannot, chat with other users by just double-clicking on them, because the main priority or focus of these agents is working on interactions. So when they're working on an interaction, we allow them to chat with other users. So in this case, the agent is...
Is there a question?
I'll jump in with a question. So are there any plans on integration to Jabberind or Spark instead of the UC, BroadSoft UC client?
Yes, yes. I mean, so UC was the platform that we, we were part of that BroadSoft family, and now as we have come into Cisco, part of those plans would be to integrate to Spark as well. But that's part of the backlog. We don't have dates available yet, but yes, you're absolutely right. We would have that level of integration too. Okay, so what I'll do next is, as an agent, I'm logged in idle, and because of that, because I was in idle state, no interaction was being assigned to me. But as soon as I go available, the agent will start getting interactions up to the capacity across the different channels. So in this case, I've been assigned an email interaction, so I can now work on this particular interaction. So the interaction appeared to be on the left, and I can see the information of the email. And on the right side, I can get more detailed information about who the customer is and all the past interactions. So here I can see it's from Randall Parker. This is the subject, and this is the time the email came in. I can also see full omni-channel interaction history for this customer, so I can see that this particular customer has had all these emails, and there's actually a chat interaction that took place too. Essentially, it is providing full omni-channel interaction history for the customers across the different channels. We also have process guides. So as part of the process guides, the supervisors can define and let the agents know step-by-step instructions on how to resolve an issue. So here in this case, we have provided instructions to the agent in terms of how to escalate a ticket. So this is all configurable, and supervisors can define which process guides are applicable to which interactions as part of the multimedia rules. So based on the type of interaction, you could say that these specific interactions are more relevant than the other ones. Similarly, we have templates available, and templates are nothing but canned responses which can be presented to agents, and they can be created by supervisors. So for example, if the agent is typing the same thing over and over again, you can create a template which can be easily inserted into interactions, thereby saving time for the agent. So in this case, I have a greeting. I can just insert this into my specific response, and that way I'm saving time as an agent. And the templates do support personalization too. So at runtime, we look at the information that is being sent that is relevant to that particular interaction, and we put that content within that token itself. And then for emails, we also store the conversation history. So for example, the customer could have say 2 different issues. Say if you're Samsung Technologies, you might have a customer who has a fridge not working and a TV not working, and they've sent emails on both the fronts. Now, as part of our solution, we can as part of a thread, we can isolate and separate the TV not working issue with the fridge not working issue based on the threading. So with that said, let me move and show you our chat solution. So as part of chat, there are 3 ways of initiating a chat. One is a direct URL. The customer can essentially put in their information, and the chat can get initiated. But we also have APIs to initiate a chat, and then we also have proactive rules that can be set up to initiate the chat. So in this particular example or demo, I'm going in as an end customer to a website. I'm trying to place a jacket, and the rule that we have created is that the second time the customer is unable to place an order, we'll offer them the option to chat with an agent. So I'm going in, I like this jacket, I'm going to add it to my cart, I place my order, I cannot place my order for whatever reason, but then when I try it once more, I get this option, hey, would you like to chat with an agent? And at this point, I'm going to accept this option as an end customer, and now two windows will pop up for me. One is the chat window, and then the other one is a push URL window where content can be loaded. So as we are trying to find an available agent, you can define the weight treatment so that different messages and different URLs can be pushed out to that customer while an agent is being found. And then on the agent front, the agent should see that interaction appear on the left-hand side based on the routing engine, and there it is. So I see that interaction, I accept it, and now I have the ability to chat with the customer. I can use my templates, and I can just greet the customer without having to type anything. And there I've sent the information to the customer. And then the same paradigm applies. I have full information about the customer, full omni-channel interaction history. In this case, it seems like the customer has not had any interaction. Process guides are shared between channels, and so are the resources. So the goal is we are providing the same level of customer service irrespective of the channel in which the customer is originating the interaction on. We also have real-time sentiment analysis available as part of our solution. So in this case, we tell the agent how this interaction is progressing by making a call to IBM Watson, passing the information about this interaction and getting a response in real time. So in this case, as a customer, I am not very happy. I was unable to place my order, so I'm going to let the agent know. And you'll be able to see the real-time sentiment analysis using that information and showing how the customer is perceiving how that interaction is going. So this is again a differentiating factor that's available as part of the CC1 solution. Down the line, we plan to add more bells and whistles where, say, an alert is sent to the supervisor, say if a specific emotional tone is exceeded or a value is exceeded on a specific tone. So all those are part of the roadmap and future enhancements. The last thing I want to show over here before I show a voice call is our UC consult feature. So as a CC1 user, as an agent, I can send this call to other contact center users and agents, and I can do that by this conference button, and I'll be able to essentially find other agents in the different queues if they are logged in. But in case I want help from a person who's not a contact center agent but is a UC user, I can do a UC consult. And in this case, I can see the presence of the different users, and it seems like Rafal is logged in because I can see his presence in green, and I can now do a UC consult with Rafal. So now what I see is two windows appear. One is the chat window with the customer, and then another chat window with the UC user, and I can now send the information and chat with the subject matter expert and get the information from the subject matter expert.
By the way, the team consult concept, going to the back office or finding experts, was pretty much the main focus of RingCentral's announcement yesterday, called the Collaborative Contact Center. This is not a new concept. They've tried to make a big deal out of it, but reaching experts in the back office and the enterprise has been talked about for years, and this is obviously a capability that you had in place.
Exactly. And as part of the solution, we also show notifications as well. So when we get the response from the end customer or the subject matter expert, we show that information on these particular tabs. So I'll go back to the subject matter expert, and as a customer, I'm going to say any updates, and you'll be able to see in real time the fact that this count on the agent desktop will increase by 1 so that the agent is not finally toggling between the different tabs and already knows that, hey, I've received a message from the subject matter, from one of the users, either the customer or the SME. So with that said, before I move on to the agent desktop, let me make a phone call and show you how a phone call appears on the agent desktop. So I've already put in my phone number for the agent, and that means this number will ring when this call is assigned to the agent. And I'm going to place a call using my other phone. So when the call is placed, there is an IVR menu that's been assigned to that particular entry point, which is going to prompt the caller and ask them why they're calling and send the call to a queue. So let me place the call. Actually, the volume was low.
Press 1 for sales or press 2 for service.
So I'm going to press 1. And there the call got assigned to this agent. And now my phone is ringing. I'm going to answer it. And you can see that the call was presented it was in ringing state. And as soon as the agent answered, the call went into connected state. And for the agent, we show information about the call in terms of what the ANI is, what the DNS was, what are the path that was followed in the IVR. And then the agent has the ability to consult with other agents. They can transfer the call. They can pause or resume the recording. So this is when the agent is collecting sensitive information from the customer, such as credit card information, and recording is enabled. They can pause the recording right here. They also have the UC console feature available for the telephony channel too. So again, making it easy and consistent for the agent for handling interactions across the different channels. So I'm going to end the call, and then when the call ends, the agent can select the wrap-up reason in terms of the outcome for that particular interaction. So with that said, let me move on to the supervisor. So in this case, I've logged in as a supervisor. And as part of the supervisor, I can go in, I can perform all of my provisioning in terms of creating my entry points, queues, sites, teams, users. And you can also create user profiles. And what that means is when you're creating users, you can define which of these functions on the left side are available to the user. And you can not only control these functions, but you can also control the data that's accessible by those users. So you can say this particular user should only get, say, real-time reports and should only get access to, say, a specific site or a specific set of entry points. All that is configurable and is done through the user profiles. And then once the provisioning is done, you can define your profiles, multimedia profiles, which essentially allow you to set the capacity of the agents. You can create your skill profiles. So for skilling, we support, you can go in and create skill definitions and then create a profile which is then associated with an agent. So skilling, we support 4 different types of skills within the application. So one is a proficiency based. For example, English is a skill which could be a range, say, between 1 to 10 or any other language. The other skill we support is enumeration, which is a set of checkboxes which could be enabled for the agents, which could be, say, the training that the agent has received. The third type of skill we support is Boolean, a yes or no value, which could be used for, say, indicating if the agent is certified on a particular product. And then the last type of skill we support is plain text. So with the plain text, you can essentially, the way we have used the plain text skill is assigning the extension ID of that agent as a skill. So the extension is created as a skill, and then the agent's value for that extension is assigned based on the different agents. So for example, when we create agent extension skill equal to 577 as an example, and when a call comes in and we want to only find this particular agent to be considered for handling that call, in that case we can set the skill requirement for that call to be where ext equal to 577, and then among all the agents who are logged in, we are narrowing it down and only considering that one particular person. So that's just one use case, and an example of that is where we are using it for last agent routing. Say if last agent routing is enabled, and if a customer has talked to an agent, they call back again, and we can put the requirement that if that agent is available, we should connect that caller to that agent as opposed to sending it to another queue or a person. This is where that's the use case for leveraging the skills-based routing and the specific skill, free text skill. So after all the provisioning is done, you have the ability to create reports. So as part of the reports, you can take an output, you can print it out, you can have it emailed in terms of everything that's provisioned in the application. So once your provisioning is done, you can go in and create your routing strategy. So as part of the routing strategy, you have to define your IVR flow. So you're basically tailoring what the customer experience is when they call in. And typically as part of the IVR flow, you play a message to the caller, ask them why they're calling, and then based on the response from the customer, you route the call to a specific queue. So the first thing that you do as part of your routing strategy is you upload your WAV files. So for example, press 1 for sales, 2 for service, and that is nothing but a WAV file that the user can create and upload into the application. And once you've uploaded your WAV files, you can then create your call flows. So as part of the call flow, as a user, I can go in, I can add a menu item. So in this case, let me create a call flow where we are playing a message to the caller and asking them if they are calling for a sales issue or a service issue. And then depending on what the response is, we'll send them to the sales queue or the service queue. So to do that, I'll insert my menu block into my call flow. And as part of the menu block, I can just double click on that and choose the WAV file that I want to play. So I have a WAV file, press 1 for sales, 2 for service. And timeout is how much time do I want to give to the caller. Let's give them 5 seconds. Number of branches in this case is 2. And I have the menu block complete. And if the customer presses 1, I can send them to the sales queue. So in this case, I've inserted a queue object, and I can choose the sales queue. And if they press 2, I can then send the call to the service queue. Oops. And then let me just double click this and choose the service queue. So here, and then disconnect the start. And now I can also define, well, I've given the user 5 seconds to enter a value. What happens if they don't press anything in 5 seconds? Well, we'll just repeat the message again. And what happens, the expected response is 1 or 2. Well, what happens if they press 8? Well, that's an invalid value. Let's just play the message again for them. So here I've created a call flow. I'm going to call it, let's call it demo Cisco March 8th. And I've created a call flow, and again, this was a simple call flow, but it took me less than 5 minutes to create a call flow. I didn't need to go to a developer and say I need a JavaScript or anything of that nature. But in addition to this simple call flow, we also have complex objects that are available that can be inserted into the call flows, such as our fetch variable block. So let me just bring that up. So as part of the fetch variable block, which is right here, I can query an external application. So if an external application has an API available, I can make an API call to them and send information about what we know about the caller and get the response back from them. So for example, a use case of this is, say if the customer is using a CRM application, we can make an API call to the CRM application, tell them information about the call, and as part of the API response, ask them, hey, do you have an open case for this particular customer based on this phone number? And if you do, well, why don't you tell me who's the agent that's assigned to that particular call? So we can get the response back as the agent ID. And now, because we know who the agent is, who's assigned to that particular call, instead of sending the call to a generic queue, we can send the call directly to an agent. So now we have basically enhanced our routing and done intelligent routing based on the information from the CRM system. And this is also where our insights from the analytics ties back into the routing as well.
Hey, Amit, I got a question. This is Jeff Nosher. All good stuff here. Can you show us where we might make a ODBC select statement to hit a local database?
Well, so that is done through the fetch variable. So if you want to hit ODBC or repository, you'll need to create an API which does that particular query in response for you. So on that front, we have a tool called, or a repository that's called the Business Rules Engine. And the fetch variable can essentially, you can make an API call to the BRE, and the BRE can then have a connection to the API, to the database and serve as a repository.
So is that something that's kind of out of the box, or how does that work?
Well, so connection and feeding the from the database to the Business Rules Engine is similar to writing a query, and so there will be some setup work required on that front. And then also as part of the URL, when you are making the query into the Business Rules Engine, the BRE will be able to look at the underlying data and send a response back. So for example, you can upload your customer information from your external application into the BRE and have customer name and whether they're gold, silver, or platinum customer as the next variable. And within the Business Rules Engine, you can create rules which says, look at the repository, and when the customer information comes in, the response back is going to be the value of, whether they're gold, silver, or platinum. And
can I tie the BRE into an existing customer local database that I don't want to upload?
Well, so I think there are two ways to solve that problem. If you want to leverage the BRE, then that's one option. If you don't want to leverage the BRE at all and want to go directly to the database, then the option is to use, and a wrapper will have to be created as an API to make that connection to the backend.
So I write my own web services app to do the select statement, and I just make a request through this.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay, and then so in addition to the fetch variable, there's also the callback block. So again, a very easy to use tool. So once you've defined your call flow, you can then go in and associate that to your entry point. So when you go into your routing strategy, you can select your entry point and choose which specific call flow should be associated to that entry point. And you can do that based on time of day, day of the week. So here I can go in and say, well, this particular routing strategy is applicable only for these dates within this time and these specific dates. So you can actually have multiple routing strategy that are non-overlapping within for an entry point. And then you can choose the call flow that was created previously. So here we created the Cisco demo call flow. So that's going to be that's basically going to be available right here, and then you can choose. So there it is, and then you can actually override the menu prompting or the queues as well. So now what you've done is when the call comes in, you define the call flow, and you have classified the calls, and the calls are being sent to the specific queue. Now, as part of the routing strategy, you can define the distribution strategy for the queues as well. So for doing that, I just go in and choose a queue. So in our system, what you'll see is the green arrow represents entry points, and the three dots, green three dots represent inbound queues. So I can choose the queue that I want to define the distribution strategy for, and then again, I can choose different strategies based on time of the day, day of the week, and here I can choose the pool of agents who should be used for answering this call. So in this case, my initial pool of agents is this particular team, but I can go in and add additional groups, and I can say, well, if nobody is available in that first team after 90 seconds, well, maybe we should add these 3 additional teams to be considered for answering that call. And then I can keep going and adding more resources. So for example, here, initially for first 90 seconds, we'll try and find somebody in this team, but after 90 seconds, we'll start considering these teams of agents for answering the call. And as the call ages, we can say, well, after 60 seconds, well, let's just add more teams so that the call is answered rather than abandoned. So essentially, you can keep adding more resources as part of the distribution strategy. And this is one of the competitive advantages we have. So for example, I know for InContact, when there's a call storm, they have to start changing their routing strategy. They have to start adding agents and say, you need to log out from here and you need to log in into a different team. In this case, we just add additional teams and the agent stays in the same team, and the additional calls related to the call storm get assigned to those agents. So once your distribution strategy and your routing strategies are configured, your application is available for use, right? So when you're using the solution as a supervisor, you want to make sure that you have visibility in terms of what's going on in the application. So for that front, we have our real-time reports. And for the real-time reports, we separate this out from a call perspective and an agent perspective. And in terms of our reporting, what we do is we show the information in a very easy to absorb chart at the top, but more detailed information is available in the table at the bottom. And our solution essentially supports drill down as well. So here we presented the summary information, but if there's something that supervisor wants to drill down on, they can just double click on that particular entry, and now they can see for that particular team, well, who are the actual agents who are logged in. And for the agents that are actually connected, the supervisor can just click on this monitor button and start monitoring the call as well. And then similarly, if I want to see, well, this agent is available, let me see how productive they have been, I can just click on them again, and I can see all of their productivity information for that particular day. Similarly, we have historical information available as well. So everything prior to today is where the supervisor can go in and get visibility on. So again, we have the same paradigm of the call reports and the agent reports, and the chart shows summary information in a very easy to absorb manner, and then the table shows more detailed information. As part of the report, you can choose your y-axis for the chart, and you can also choose which parameters should appear for the table as well. And then in terms of time period for our historical reports, you can go in any time period for the last 13 months and get visibility for that time period. We also have call monitoring functionality, so the supervisor can define which calls they want to monitor and specify based on the queue, site, teams, or agents. And then they can put in the number at which they want to monitor the calls at. And one of the calls that meets this criteria is connected in the supervisor's conference then. In addition to being in front of a machine and monitoring calls, supervisors can also create a schedule. So they can, for example, say if the supervisor knows that they're available for monitoring calls, they would have a phone available to them, but they might not be in front of a machine. They can create the schedule in advance, and different supervisors can go in and create the different schedules, and the system would then conference that supervisor at that desired time. And one use case of this is where a customer of ours had a long commute and knew that they'll be available to monitor calls, just that they'll not be in front of a machine. All they did was they went in, created a new monitoring schedule, defined the time in terms of when this should be active, and define the phone number, which in this case would be their cell phone number, and the system essentially connected one call that met this criteria with the supervisor at this number during these times. We also have call recording functionality. So as part of the call recording functionality, the supervisor can go in for the different queues and define which calls should be recorded and how many of those calls should be recorded. So that's done by creating the schedules. And as part of the schedule, you can define based on site teams or agents and choose the percentage of calls that should be recorded. And these recordings are wave files. Like I mentioned, they are retrieved from the media server, and we associate the CDR with the wave file, so the CDR then can be used for searching those recordings as well. And that is done through the recording management portal, where the supervisor can go in and say, I want to essentially retrieve all the recordings that meet this criteria, and essentially the system will display those recordings, and the supervisor can play those recordings and review them.
Hey, I had a question on the recording. Can the agent pull their own recording and listen to it?
That was something we added recently. So as part of the agent desktop, within the APS window, there's a call recordings tab. And as part of that tab, we provide the ability for the agent to play back the recordings for that day itself. So it's limited to that day. If you want agents to get full visibility into the recording portal, then you'll be able to go into the provisioning and create a user profile, and that agent can then get access to the recording management link as well.
Okay, and one other question that I've had with other customers is when we go to the recording, they a lot of times want to make sure that certain supervisors can only see certain agents' recordings, so almost like a nested or multi-level type authority. Is that available too?
Absolutely. So that all ties back to our user profile. So when you create a user profile, you can choose. So in this case, instead of creating a new one, let me just edit an existing one. So I go into user profiles, and here I've created a user profile. And as part of the user profile, I can choose which modules they have access to. So in this case, I can say, well, they need to have access to the recording management, so they'll be able to view. And then once I've defined that specific functionality, I can then choose which sites, teams, or agents they have access to. So here I've done all, but I can choose only this site or this team or this entry point. And those users will only get access to that level of information then.
Awesome, thanks.
So with that said, let me show you our Salesforce integration. So our application is listed on AppExchange. So when you search for BroadSoft, you will see two different listings appear. One is the CC1's Salesforce edition, and the other one is the CTI adapter. So the CTI adapter is the agent level integration. That's what everybody provides. That's not a differentiating factor. But the first one, which is the Salesforce edition for Sales and Service Cloud, that is the supervisor level integration. Now, when that is installed on a customer's Salesforce environment, let me log into an environment where this is installed. There's a new menu item that's available in Salesforce called Call Center Admin that then becomes available. And as part of this menu item, the supervisor can then go in and create their entry points. They can create their voice queues, sites, teams, all of that information. And they don't create agents because the agents are nothing but Salesforce users that we leverage, and only the Salesforce users that have the call center enabled with a profile can be added to the sites and teams. And then the supervisor can go in and create routing strategies so that call flow builder that was available on the other dashboard is available from within Salesforce as well. So you can create your routing strategy. The supervisor can monitor calls as well. They can record the calls in terms of creating the recording strategy, and also retrieve the calls from within Salesforce too. So in this case, we are not pushing the voice recordings into Salesforce because Salesforce storage is very expensive. So we are actually just providing a link within Salesforce to access the recordings. And what we also do as part of this integration is we push the call data records and the agent activity records into Salesforce. So now you can leverage the native Salesforce reporting module, and you can leverage these tables to create your own reports with this information. And within Salesforce, you can also create joins. So as part of the join functionality, you can join. You can create a report with a join between the call data record and the case object, and now you'll have visibility on not only the cases that have been created, but also the calls that led to those cases being created. So that's the supervisor level integration, and of course we have the agent level integration, where as an agent, if I go into the Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, there is a phone icon that appears, and we essentially allow the agent to log in and essentially do a screen pop for that particular customer who's calling in. And once the call ends, we do a logging of the activity as well, and as part of the activity, we have a link to the recording too. Let me just do this one here. So in this case, the single sign-on for the agent took place. I can put in the phone number for this agent. Let me choose 408, which is my cell phone number. And now I'm logged in into Salesforce. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to place an inbound call.
Press 1 for sales, or press 2 for service.
So I get the IVR menu, I press 1. The call has gone into queue, and then the agent is still in idle status, so the call will not be assigned to this agent. As soon as this agent becomes available, the agent gets a screen pop, and the agent's phone starts ringing. The agent answers the call, and now the agent, because of screen pop, knows who's calling, why they're calling, and all their past interactions as well. So once the call ends, the agent can choose the wrap-up reason, and as part of the wrap-up, once the wrap-up completes, what you saw on the background was the screen refresh, which essentially was because we created a new activity for this particular call that just took place and ended, and we also have a link to play the recording as well. So that's our Salesforce integration. Let me quickly talk about our analytics and show you the analyzer. So as part of the analyzer, the user can go in and create visualizations and dashboards. So I'll show you an example of a visualization. And as part of the visualization, the user goes in and defines which records should be analyzed. So defining the data set, and that is done by choosing the time range on when the interactions took place. And you can create a real-time visualization as well. So once you've created the date range, you can then define which interactions you want to analyze. So for example, in that first example that I talked about, the call to United Airlines, since we are pulling the data from all these different systems, you'd have the field available from the survey and the IVR available as part of the common pool of variables that are available for the visualization. So here you can go in and say, I only want to consider interactions where the customer said they were unhappy. Or in this case, I only want to consider interactions, say, that were handled by these specific agents. So you can go in, you can add any number of filters that you want, and now you define which data set or which interactions you want to analyze. Next thing you do after you've done that is you go in and define your profiling and segmentation variable. Profiling variables are your KPIs. These are the metrics that are important to you. And again, you can choose any variable from the different systems that we are pulling the information from. We also support formulas. So in this case, I created a formula which is a variable coming in from my CRM system, and I'm dividing it by a variable coming in from my ACD system. And then your segmentation variables are the variables that you want to compare the performance on these metrics. So here I want to compare the performance of the different countries, but say I want to compare the performance of the different agents. I just add agent as a profiling variable, as a segmentation variable. Now I'm doing segmentation by country, and then the different agents who are available and answering interactions on those within those countries. And then once you've defined your profiling and segmentation variable, you then choose your output format. So we support the basic tabular format, which is a table. But then we have a variation of the tabular format called the heat map. And then as part of the heat map, what we do is, it's a tabular format, but we look at the value of a cell and see how that value compares against the rest of the values in the table. And depending on how low or high, how high that value is, we color code the cell in different shades of red. So with this, the user is can very easily identify the extremely high and the extremely low values by looking at the deep red cells or the white cells. And then we have two variations of the heat map: the column heat map, where we only compare the column elements, and the row heat map, we only look at the row elements and to color code the cells. And then we have the variations of the we also have the other charting mechanisms called line chart, bar chart, area chart, which I think is a very standard charting mechanism which is available in a lot of other applications. But then the next output format, which is the motion chart, is very unique to our solution. And this is where the user can gain insights based on the underlying data. So with the motion chart, we show the user how a KPI changes over a period of time. So in other applications, they'll be able to show, 100,000 interactions came in the month of February. But there's no visibility in terms of how those interactions or that KPI might have changed, and if there's any trending information. And that's what our solution provides. And I have two examples of where I've created a visualization where the output format is a motion chart, and I'll show you how easy it is for a user to gain insights from the trending information and use it to their advantage. And then lastly, the output format can be a sparkline chart, which is essentially a table, but each cell can be a chart in there. So now that you've created your visualization, you've chosen the output format, you can save it, and you can schedule the visualization as well. And as part of the scheduling, you can include the output as a CSV or an Excel, or you can even send the visualization as a link. So at runtime, the system will look at the parameters or the date range, and based on the date range, if it's a relative date range, like last week or yesterday, the system will compute the data set that meets that criteria, run this visualization, and send those users the link to that visualization. So here I've created two visualizations. The first one is a visualization where I want to compare the performance of two outsourcers who are handling calls. So in this case, these dots are those two outsourcers. The yellow one is River BPO, and the blue one is Divergence. And I'm comparing the performance on the offer rate. So the scenario is that the customers call in, an offer is made to the customer and is tracked in the CRM application, and we want to see which vendor is doing a better job in making offers and who has a better offer rate. So I don't know, I think River BPO is the better outsourcer, but I just created a visualization and I can see for sure whether they are better or not than Divergence. So I just play this and I can see the performance change over a period of time. And the initial hunch that I had is actually true, which meant that River BPO or yellow outperforms blue for the most part. But when I look at the data and I see that blue actually has spikes on certain days. And when I look at these dates on the calendar, they are exactly 7 days apart and they happen to be weekends. So the insight that I've gained very easily is that, well, the performance of Divergence or blue is better over weekends, right? So that's an insight. And I can use that to my advantage and I can say, well, why don't we send them more calls over the weekends? Because their performance is better on the weekends than weekdays, right? So, but then the other question comes up, well, is it because their performance is better because they have better agents staffed over the weekends, or is it because my call quality is better and more customers who are likely to make a purchase are calling in over weekends? I don't know. Well, there's one way to find out. I'll create a visualization to find that out. And here I've created a visualization where I'm looking at two agents. This agent is staffed over the weekends and this agent is staffed over weekdays. And on the y-axis, I'm looking at the cumulative conversion rate, which is all the conversions made by the customer, by the agent, divided by all the calls handled by the agent. So, and on the x-axis, I'm looking at the number of calls handled by the agents. So when I play this, again, a motion chart, it's a visualization by profiling segmentation variable as a motion chart. Here, I'm looking at this graph and I can see that because this is a straight line on the y-axis, there is stability on the conversion rate. So if it was moving up and down, that would have meant that there is no stability and the performance is all over the place. But here, I'm getting a straight line. And the straight line essentially means that I can, after analyzing about 700 calls, I can very accurately say that this person who is handling calls on the weekends has a 27% chance of converting a call, whereas this agent only has a 10% chance of converting a call. No, so I had a hunch, I gained some insights, I've confirmed that their weekend agents are actually better than their weekday agents. And I can use that to my advantage and then this can be tied back into the routing engine where at runtime, the system can look at which is the better performing agent and route the more important call to the better performing agent. So that's what I had as part of the demo. I know we have 5 to 7 minutes for Q&A if there were any questions.
Any questions for Amit? Any comments? Not just questions. How does the solution appear to you for those of you experienced in contact center, and any comments on that?
It's I'll just speak up real quick because I got to drop. It's very impressive for me. I'm not a contact center guru by any stretch of the imagination, but I like everything I see, and you did a great job of demoing it. Amit, I was looking you up in the directory. I don't see you in the Cisco directory yet. Is that still being worked out on the BroadSoft side?
Yeah, it is. I believe by the 15th or the 21st, you should start seeing me on the Cisco directory.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sure thing, absolutely.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, Mitt, this is Jeff Nosher. This is great stuff. I love it. I've talked to Zach about a few things on the sidebar that I think would be great, but overall, man, the visual appeal of this, the way you demoed it, I can't wait to get my hands on a lab environment so I can kind of mimic the demo because I do a lot of these my own. But in the meantime, are you the guy that we call on, or is there a team? How do we do that?
So with demo accounts, yeah, I'm the point of contact. We have a demo system. I've created a few demo accounts for the technical marketing team, Amy, Robert, and they have a few demo accounts. But if they don't have anything available that they can send to you, then, and if you need a dedicated account, just shoot me an email. I'll send you the account information.
Okay, but for now, you're the guy to give the demos. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, it's great.
We do have two sales engineers as well, Rick Simon and Randall Parker. So depending on the opportunity and if there's a right customer, then those folks can get involved too.
Cool. Great.
Just a couple items, if for any last comments or questions. A ton of CC1 content was put on the BU portal. I copied the team on the link to that. It's under Cloud Care. It's the first thing that comes up. If you don't have the link, let me know. I copied Brian's team on it, and that went up this week. It's not all the content available. By the way, just so you know, that content will likely be rebranded, obviously with Cisco colors, and likely the CC1 name will be rebranded too over time as we do naming conventions and the like. So just keep that in mind. Our partner trial program is about to be launched in March. Once we put that through the paces, we'll be able to add additional partners into the trial program and then begin to hopefully substantially expand the program so we can get that Cisco sales machine in order and you know, grow the funnel and get very competitive with this fast-growing cloud market. And then from an America standpoint, if you believe you have a qualified opportunity, take your opportunity to Brad Mack right up here in the corner. These are the sales leads by region. This deck, I'll take, Amit's going to give me his deck, and I have a deck. I'll combine them, and I'll find a place to put this, but these materials will be made available to you. So Brad is the gentleman that would take you to the next step. I know Mr. Wooten has already dealt with Brad, I believe, in an opportunity, so he's very experienced, knowledgeable in the industry. He's been in the industry many years, and he has about 4 or 5 people on his direct team right now that are part of America's worldwide sales organization working for Wayne Winholt. Any other final questions or comments? I know a lot of you hung in there. We appreciate that. I'll make sure this recording is made available for those that couldn't join also. All right. If not, just want to say thank you, everyone, for attending the boot camp. Go to get your CC1 training, get your certification. You can put the CC1 Certified Sales Professional logo in your auto signature in your email and add that to your list of accomplishments at Cisco. And look forward to continued rolling this out and success for us downstream together. Amit, on behalf of everybody, I'd like to thank you for doing this. Every time you do it, it's like the first time. You've done many. You're going to do another one tonight, and I appreciate that so much.
Great. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Zach.
All right.
I appreciate your time. Look forward to working with everybody.
All right. Take care, everyone.